A massive explosion was heard in Tehran today as the Israeli military says it's targeting the heart of the city. It comes as the Israeli military intercepted more missiles launched toward Israel from Iran this morning, as Iran's government vows retaliation for the attacks that killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran's cabinet is threatening that its paramilitary Revolutionary Guard will launch its most intense offensive operation ever, targeting Israeli and American bases. In a social media post early this morning, President Trump warned Iran not to escalate attacks, saying if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. That warning comes as Iran continues its retaliatory attacks across the Gulf region, firing missiles at Israel as well as at U.S. bases across the region in the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. Meanwhile, the Ayatollah's death has sparked a range of reactions around the world. Across Iran, crowds gathered in the streets to either celebrate or mourn the death of a leader who ruled the country for nearly 4 decades. In Karachi, Pakistan, several people were killed as police clashed with pro-Iranian protesters who stormed the U.S. consulate there. For now, President Trump's long-term plans for what comes next in Iran remain unclear. But in a social media post announcing the death of the Ayatollah on Saturday, he said heavy and pinpoint bombing would continue uninterrupted throughout the week or, quote, as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Joining us now, Associated Press correspondent Sam Mednick in Tel Aviv and MS Now political reporter Alex Tabbitt, who is live for us in West Palm Beach, not far from Mar-a-Lago, where the president is staying this weekend. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Alex, I want to start with you at Mar-a-Lago, where there has been an impromptu situation room created at the president's summer residence and resort. Can you explain to us what the conversations are like on the ground there and anything that happened overnight in terms of the deliberations with regards to continued operations in Iran?
Well, right now we're seeing here in South Florida President Trump do what he usually does, which is mix work and play, go to fundraisers for MAGA Inc., the super PAC that supports the Republican Party, while also, of course, launching this military offensive that is going to have a widespread impact and consequences in the Middle East for years to come. And the large outstanding question right now, Jackie, is what comes next. And when it comes to what comes next, both President Trump and members of his administration haven't been particularly specific. President Trump did say that whoever fills the power vacuum in Iran should not and will not have nuclear capabilities. He also said in a recent interview with CBS News overnight that there are some, quote, good candidates to take over Iran after the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. But the president did refuse to name names as to who that next leader should be. And what comes next, who comes next, is the outstanding question here. It's the same question that we were begging just a few months ago after the ousting of Maduro in Venezuela. And while President Trump has spoken directly to the people of Iran in a video message that we've all seen by now that came out early in the morning, Saturday morning, telling the Iranian people to rise up against their government, calling on the Iranian opposition to seize this opportunity. How feasible that actually is and which steps the Iranian people should take to achieve that outcome is not made clear by the president. Jackie?
Sam, this is something that the leader of Israel has been wanting for a very long time. When you are talking to folks 24 hours plus into this in the second day after the first strikes, what are you hearing from folks on the ground in Israel, especially the folks in government?
What people are saying here is that they support this. I spoke to a man last night who was actually near the site of where a missile hit a huge crater. He was just a few blocks away. He said his room shook and he was very afraid. I said, well, do you support this? Do you want this to continue? He said, absolutely. He said, for as long as it takes, even if this means that there's going to be destruction and that these missiles are going to be hitting from time to time. And that seems to be the general consensus of what I'm hearing from Israelis, that there is a broad support. They want Iran to no longer be a threat, even if that means this will go on for days or weeks. If it continues for months, some Israelis say that they might change their tune, but for now, there is very broad support for this.
Sam Mednick and Alex Tabbitt, thanks so much for those reports. Let's bring in Alex Ward, national security reporter for The Wall Street Journal. Alex, you had some breaking news overnight. Walk us through that.
So, I mean, what we're hearing from the administration is that they effectively, excuse me, been a long night, that they effectively believed that Iran might actually attack first. That there was intelligence that they had received that said that they would hit bases, that the casualty tolls could have been higher if they had, if the U.S. had not attacked first. Now, to be honest, there's reason to be skeptical of that, right? Why would Iran do this? They already knew that they were the weaker party in this fight, and that intelligence seemed to have at least been part of the case that the administration made to go to war. It was presented to the Gang of Eight last Tuesday. So it's worth keeping that in mind, that it was sort of the context to move forward and part of the mosaic of reasons for the administration to attack Iran and start this regime change operation. But that seems to have been part of the play here, and or at least part of the rationale that convinced President Trump to move forward. Plus, we should note that in Thursday, during the meetings with Iran in Geneva, the administration, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the two envoys, they came away from that meeting believing Iran wasn't playing in good faith when it came to the negotiations. And based on our understanding of those talks, which can get very technical, the Iranians didn't come with a good offer. And when they called the president, Trump basically was like, okay, well, then I guess there's only one option left. And it was one of the many reasons why the president decided to strike.
Alex, excuse me, in your piece, I want to pull out part of your reporting in terms of the timing of all this. Israeli and U.S. military intelligence had long watched and waited for a rare opportunity. Senior political and military leaders in Iran holding a meeting where they could all be killed at once. Intelligence officers had identified not just one meeting, but 3, Israeli officials said. So that is pretty incredible, the intelligence that led to this action. But I want to read something from Axios with the headline, Trump floats, quote, off-ramps after attacking Iran. This is from yesterday. This is quoting the president in an interview with Axios. I can go long and take over the whole thing or end it in 2 or 3 days and tell the Iranians, see you again in a few years if you start rebuilding your nuclear and missile programs, Trump said in a 5-minute phone interview from Mar-a-Lago. Alex, given your national security sources and contacts, are these, the president describes these, what I just read, as off-ramps, but are they realistic?
It's unclear. I mean, if there's one thing we know from President Trump is that he loves maximum flexibility, and he seems to be providing himself the ability to take out the whole of the country. I don't know what take over the whole country means. I mean, he's not going to run Iran if he is, but it seems like it just means he would hit on many targets throughout the nation. Or if somehow this, new Iranian leadership that exists right now and it is an interim leadership says, hey, we're willing to dismantle our whole nuclear program and we're going to stop ballistic missiles, et cetera, maybe President Trump goes, okay, that's enough. They've cried uncle. Who knows? But it doesn't seem, based on how the way the Iranians are attacking right now, that they are willing to negotiate. And also, could even an interim, leadership in Iran even have the legitimacy to do that? It's unclear. So it just seems like the president giving himself some flexibility. But actually, I think that the main thing is it provides some insight into the fact that I'm not sure even he knows what the goal of this is. There is regime change, sure. I mean, obviously, the supreme leader has been killed. But what next? Is there someone else to take over? Is it their plan to kind of have like a Venezuela-like relationship with, like, as we do with Delcy Rodriguez? Is it to completely decimate the country? Is the U.S. waiting for the population of the people of Iran to take over? Is the U.S. trying to smuggle in a new leader? I mean, these are a bunch of questions that we don't understand the answers to. All we really know is that the president didn't like the direction of the Iranian government that is now being toppled.
Alex, you mentioned the interim leadership, Ali Reza Arafi, according to Reuters, was appointed to Iran's Leadership Council. He was appointed on Sunday as a jurist member of Iran's Leadership Council. It's a body tasked with fulfilling the supreme leader's role until the Assembly of Experts elects a new leader. The question I have for you, Alex, is there was this, they called it the 12-day war. This was in June of last year when we also had breaking news when Israel struck Iran and then the United States did as well. And this was June 13th through the 24th. And they said, that was the 12-day war and we moved on. Why should the world not see this as just an extension of that? Because at the end of the day, they're doing the same thing. The idea behind it is the same. And clearly, the goal of the 12-day war was the obliteration of the nuclear capabilities of Iran, which, if they had to strike it again, that did not happen. So won't the world just see this as an extension of what has been happening in Iran since last year of June?
Yeah, I mean, I guess right now it's a 14-day war, right? I mean, they're with a very long, months-long pause. But it's hard to imagine that this is going to last 12 days. It could. I mean, war's unpredictable, and the president can be unpredictable. So who knows? The perils of prediction in all of this astound me. But I think we need to acknowledge what is really happening here. What's really happening is it's not the one and done strike of Operation Midnight Hammer, where the president kind of did it to stop the war in some weird way, right? The strikes were done and then said, okay, that's enough. That was the goal. Everyone calm down, and he imposed some leverage and the war stopped. That's not the way he's seeing it now. This is not just we're going after the nuclear sites. They're now hitting, hundreds, thousands, perhaps by the end of this, military sites, government sites. And of course, the Iranians are retaliating against regional partners, allies. They may kill an American by the end of all this, perhaps several. It doesn't, that's a spiral at that point. That there wasn't sort of, as odd as it is to say, a clean break in the 12-day war.